Hi, so in this video, I want to talk about your spine and how you can fix it if you have sciatic nerve pain. So the first thing I would do is look at someone from this front to see if their hip bones are even. So also, I'm looking for the bony protrusions, and sometimes they're uneven from each other. So because I have sciatic nerve pain a lot, you can kind of see it in my body that the right hip actually looks a little longer. It looks like my right leg is longer. The only way I'd be able to know is to actually measure the bone. What I see a lot of, and what down the line seems to lead to hip replacement, is that the thigh bone shifts forward because of strength of the quad, because we're too quad dominant. And then what that does is tilt the pelvis back, and then over time the muscle gets harder and stronger, and then the body adapts. It's really cool that when it senses too much movement and not enough, it has all this strategy to correct it. So that's why there's bursa sacs, and that's why there's bone spurs. It's just to protect from irritation. But anyway, so if you look at me from one side, I have an arch here. This is actually, I have a flatter back on this side, and then this side is arched. This is very common in sciatic nerve pain. That's why I did the driving video, because I think if we're constantly uneven in the hips. So if the spine is the main piece, then what I'd like to do is, I've already kind of showed correcting, are you tilting forward, back? Are you too arched? Are you too tucked under? You need to figure out where your spine is in your neutral, and then also find out how all of the muscles around it can work. Because if you can't integrate the muscles, you're not in your neutral, is the easier way to kind of figure this out. So whatever side you have a smaller arch on, I'm gonna hug the other knee into the chest. So I'd be lying on my back and I'm hugging the knee in. So what I would be doing is now I'm tilting the pelvis back of the side that has a bigger arch, and then I'm straightening the leg out to give myself more of an arch on this side. So I maybe would hold it 30 seconds, I can relax and do it again. Because if the pelvis is uneven, then we need to restore that, because the joint that they meet up at, that SI joint, is where the nerve is. So the other thing is how much do you shift your hips over here? Because your sacrum is like an upside down triangle down to your tailbone. That could be tilted. That could also be twisted. And so if you have that twist going on, your pelvis might not actually be connecting that well, and the nerve is the unfortunate part of telling you why. Spines are not designed to have tons of load bearing on them. When you go upstairs, you should have a flat back. You should be hinging from the hip. You shouldn't be rounding from your spine. When you're biking, you shouldn't be biking with a round back. You should be flat back and using your glute. Your glute is a huge muscle in moving. So what we could do is the piriformis muscle is the muscle that turns the leg out. It can also tuck the pelvis back. What we can do is use the opposite muscle of the piriformis, because that turns the leg out, is I would try to do an internal rotation. Careful not to use your psoas, but I would try to strengthen the pelvic floor, because you need something to take over. You can't just not have any muscles never working. So not even working the inner thighs, putting a ball between the knees is one thing. Coming in, lying on your side, and then doing a bottom leg lift of the side that's weaker. Because if you do it balanced, you could do the weak side, the stronger side, the weaker side, but you can't keep working in balance in order to create balance if you're out of balance. Does that make sense? So my right side's probably weaker on my pelvic floor, so I'm going to be working that. If you feel weird just doing one side, then do the other side, and then come back to do another set on the first side that's weaker. Then you need the glutes to be stronger, the side glutes, not just the glute maximus that tightens and tucks the pelvis back. Because if you're walking and you're having the hip shift side to side, that's probably some of the piriformis. It could also be the back muscles here that are called your QL as an abbreviation. And that can cause a lot of pain too. So it's always tough to know what muscle, unless we can see what movements it's doing. Then also, how are you walking this way? Are you kind of you step forward and here? I mean, the back isn't designed from that. Your spine should be here, and then your legs should move equally forward and back. If you're tucked under, and now I'm just using my quad to come forward, your quads could be so strong, they connect to the pelvis, they tilt the pelvis back. So strength isn't always on our side, and pain tells us that. And I'm not saying that you can't ever or shouldn't work out. It's just that you need to know the bigger picture so you know what to do when you're in pain to try to correct your body. So if you have any other questions, let me know. You can always send me private messages, and I don't mind doing videos. I love it. That it helps to kind of plant the inside of what might help you to get out of pain.